Hey everyone, welcome to the Fifth Cycle Pub, where everybody knows your name, everybody might want you dead. We have a really fun and exciting episode for you guys today. And for that, Trey invited Eli, more than most on Discord, to join us. Welcome, Eli.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, we're really excited to talk about some Solforge Fusion news, a bunch of stuff that we've been up to, and most importantly and most excitingly, some images from the digital client that has been shared. So we're going to share all of that with you guys and discuss it, probably too much. Yeah, so let's we can get started. Trey, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, man. What's going on?
Same old, just working too much and sleeping not enough and existing.
Okay.
Yeah, so I mean, let's what have you guys been up to? Trey, what you've been up to in the world of Solforge Fusion?
So we are rapidly coming up on the time of year where we're supposed to get all these store champs people together. Like if you have one of store champs, it's either in like late July, early August, something like that. It's going to be, there's a tournament that you're going to get to play in. And I have, as Kingwood Hobbies, I have my thing here locally in Houston, but I also am a big part of the Fifth Cycle, which is this great community that we've fostered for Solforge Fusion. And so essentially having two locations, I'm going to be running a store champs for folks here locally coming up this next Saturday, depending on whenever this comes out. But I've got a second kit here burning a hole in my pocket, and I thought maybe there would be a Kingwood Hobbies / Fifth Cycle to store champs that we could put together. And so I've talked to a couple people to see when would be a good time, and it looks like on July the 2nd, on Sunday, July the 2nd, U.S. time. I haven't got all the details sorted out yet, but it'll be in the tournament that I put on. We'll be having a Fifth Cycle / Kingwood Hobbies store champs where you can get all the cool little bits. You get the little lane token thing, and you get the what are the decks? The Arbiter decks, and then the cool coin, as well as the winner being the person who can officially represent the Kingwood Hobbies Fifth Cycle edition to the Store Champs tournament, the Tournament of Champions or whatever it's called. So that's a cool tournament I have coming up. Looking forward to it.
Very cool. Yeah, and that's gonna be my birthday, so happy birthday to me. That's gonna be a nice gift to win the Fifth Cycle Store Championships.
Yeah.
So those
Can I propose another prize? You get to serenade Kuz on his birthday.
Yeah, you have to. If you win, you have to sing me happy birthday in front of everybody.
We'll just do it as a group. It'll be one. We'll be on Discord. We'll be all together. We'll throw a digital candle up there, and
nothing would make me happier. Cool. So more details to come. Keep your eyes and ears peeled for that. I don't think you can keep your ears peeled, but keep your keep your eyes open for that. We'll definitely be sharing more information as we get a little bit closer. And when do we know when this Tournament of Champions is happening? Did they didn't announce a date or anything?
I have not had anything fixated in my brain. If I've seen something, it went in one eye and out the other.
Yeah, if I had seen something, I would remember at least, the month. So definitely, I don't think I have seen anything. Cool. So excited for that. Eli, anything you've been up to recently?
Yeah, I'm excited. I got to meet Alex, the guy who's head of the organized play when I was
Alex
in
Watkins.
Denver.
Yep.
Alex Watkins. Yep. And I'm going to be for Origins later this month. I'm going to be helping out run some of the events, and I'm also getting ready for a new cosplay. For those who may be in the know, from Fuse Fest, I did a little bit of a Korok cosplay, and I'm coming as a newer Forgeborn and at Origins.
Cersei?
Think newer.
Newer.
I just bought a silver morph suit because I'm going as Crux.
Crux, nice.
Isn't he bald?
Yes, hence the morph suit that's going to cover all of
okay.
this luscious hair.
You have long flowing. I'm gazing jealously at your long flowing locks with my inability to grow head hair.
Oh, if strategically it's moved in ways that you don't see the balding happening behind the
Okay.
scenes.
Right on.
It's still happening. It's just cleverly camouflaged. Yeah.
In a 2-inch square on my screen, it looks glorious.
Thank you.
Cool. And then for me, I've just been playing actually quite a bit of Solforge Fusion. I've just came off a stretch of working 12 straight night shifts. And although that is exhausting and it doesn't leave a whole lot of time in my personal life, in the wee hours of the morning when things finally slow down at work, we usually have a couple of hours where we can kind of either watch a movie or play games or whatnot. And I've been working lots with Mark Burns, who you guys obviously know, and Curtis, and my other buddy who plays Solforge, and Cynthia. So the three of us, or I guess me with the three of them individually, have been getting a couple of games in per night over the last 7 nights, and it's been fun. Curtis has this really great minion deck with like the Wanderer. Is the Wanderer, is that what he's called? No,
Relentless Wanderer.
Relentless Wanderer, yeah. So he's got the Relentless Wanderer, he's got the Transcendent Biologist, Lycian Rain, and what's the other spell that puts out 2 wisps? Council? Yeah, Summoning Council, as well as like other cards, all in a green deck that just makes a ton of minions, and a ton of and buffs his minions as well,
and other cards.
And other cards, yeah.
He's not playing like he didn't get the special 4-card deck.
Yeah, he's just got a really, really great minion generating deck, and it's got like 4 or 5 spells. And then he also has Dark Forge Drain at level 3 for his Forgeborn. So he really leans into, like, he just gets Oak Fathers out pretty easily, which obviously have breakthrough. And then, at some point in cycle 3, he just Dark Forge drains one of them, which is to give them +2/+2 for each spell in his banish pile. And it usually ends up being like +16, +20, something like that, on top of his actual 8/8 Oak Father, right? That starts out. So that can get scary in a hurry. And he was playing it with a red deck that was okay, but it just wasn't quite there. And so I went through my collection, and I kind of offered him 4 or 5 different decks that I thought would be a great pairing for it. And I had this deck that was really, really good. It has a Necromancer, it has a Blight Witch, and a whole bunch of spells, I think 4 or 5 spells as well. But literally half the deck requires you to kill one of your own creatures. So I just didn't have a good enough minion generating deck to pair with it, because you want to be able to spit out minions to actually kill, to use those spells. And those spells are really great if you have something disposable on your board. So I showed him that deck, and I let him play with it a few games. I think he fell in love with it, and I said, well, hang on to it, we'll work out a trade later or whatever. And so that's been his latest competitive deck, and he is doing pretty well with it. And he beat me twice with it, with a few of my good competitive decks. And I said, okay, let's bring out the big guns. And so I played with ShamWow, my triple Shambler deck, and I ended up winning that one, but it was a lot closer than most games with all that breakthrough that he's got coming. So yeah, that was super fun. So that's kind of what I've been up to lately, in the world of Solforge Fusion. I guess the next thing that we want to jump into, or the big thing that we wanted to talk about, was the image that you guys are seeing if you're watching the YouTube video. And if you're not, the images that we're about to talk about will be in the Pod References Discord channel. So definitely check that out. But so what went down here is that Stoneblade sent out a newsletter that included a teaser image of the digital client for Solforge Fusion. So I posted it in the Discord, and then Shadow piped up, and we started asking him questions and picking his brain, and he started explaining a few things. And then he shared some more images, and so I have those all available for you guys to check out, and we'll kind of go through them quickly and take a look at what we see and what we like, and speculate and discuss what these images are all about.
Before we get there,
yeah, go for it.
But before we get there, we've added, we and us, as well as the game itself, has added a lot of new people since the beginning of the year when the digital client news broke. And so if you're not familiar with what's going on, originally the Solforge, before it was Fusion, when it was just a regular TCG, Solforge was released only as a digital client way back in like 2012 or 13 or something like that. But then, because they thought the upgrade mechanic would be too complex to do in paper. But as they rolled forward and they decided to do Solforge Fusion, they were like, oh, we'll just do it. But when they did the Kickstarter, there were no immediate plans to do this digital client. It was only after it received like a really good response from the fans that about last fall, they made the internal decision of, oh, this might be a thing. We should probably make this digital so we can grow it even bigger. And thus the rebirth of Solforge as a digital client has happened. And they just made this announcement, they just made this decision at the end of 2022. So we're 6 months maybe into them just deciding that going from maybe we should do this to having these images. So that's a pretty nice turnaround time.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of this, visually or at least coding, I'm sure a bunch of this is recycled from the old game.
It's a different person doing it, as far as I know. I don't know who did the original one, but I know the people doing this one, and I don't think they're the ones that did
right
the original.
But I guess they may have. I guess I'm not saying I shouldn't say that they probably, but they may have some framework to work with that previously existed, right? Which may explain how fast that they were able to kind of spin this up. But yeah, it looks really cool. I don't know what this would look like on an iPhone or on a cell phone, but like on a tablet or on a computer screen, this looks like it could be great, and it looks quite functional. I maybe Eli, we can kind of throw it to you a little bit. To tell us what you see, what you like, what you're thinking here.
Well, the first thing I got to say is, as far as a pre-alpha testing game, this looks immaculate. The bits that I see here that I think are very well done, if you look at the left side of the screen in the middle, there are these triangles that are next to each other, and then there's a square, and then there's like the Roman numeral sign to show what cycle you're in, and then there's 3 little pips next to that. So in just this tiny little rectangle, we have these triangles that are representing the action phases, or it's my turn, your turn, my turn, your turn. And then the square is the combat phase. And then you have the symbol representing what cycle we're in. And I'm assuming those 3 little pips are what turn it is in that cycle.
Mm-hmm.
So really well condensed, a lot of information that I just nitpicking on little things. That's where my eye goes. And I'm like, ooh, chef's kiss to whoever designed this, because there's a lot of information crammed in a very small amount of space.
Right. Yeah, so I'm just kind of scrolling through the image here. There's a few things that were mentioned. Obviously, the life totals are there as well. And do we know what this like purple skull looking button is?
My guess would be that's the banish pile, and then the red button with the card with it down is the discard pile.
So you would click on that, and then another window would pop up and show you everything. Yeah.
Right. And then there is another pile in the real game, which is your deck, but I guess there's 0 information in
maybe
your
just
deck.
A count.
Right, but then that's represented probably by these pips, right? And
fair enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That Eli was talking about. So I guess there is no need to have like a deck pile that you can look at based on what we're seeing here. Mm-hmm. The other thing in this bottom right corner is like an undo button and then the done button. So I kind of like that. You can probably like, And I don't know, and this is kind of an interesting conversation too, I think, but a lot of times in a digital space when you're playing a game, you can try a bunch of stuff and sort of see the results of what you've tried, and then undo it and try a different thing and undo it and try a different thing. And then when you figure out the most efficient one, you can kind of hit done and then do the thing, which
So yeah,
is not like, and I'm not saying that specifically with this game, but I'm saying in a lot of games that is a thing that exists. And in a card game like this, where in reality you would never be able to do that, especially if it's going to be doing math for you, or like, figuring out how much you're buffing a creature, if you're placing a card there, or if you're playing this card, how much you get to buff, whatever the case is, right? Things like Dark Forge Drain or whatnot. It'd be interesting to know, or to see if that's something that'll be available. Like, are they going to try to mimic you playing a real game, or are they setting it up so that you can try a bunch of different avenues and then hit done when you're done?
I'm curious if they're going to have like a button. I'm going to start a game and I tick this button for prison rules. And either if I tick this button, a card laid is a card played, my friend, or you untick it and now you have this undone button where you can like step, because you normally on your turn you play a card, but you might have some free things to do, and like in a non-prison rules setting, you can rewind back to the beginning of your terminal, your phase,
Yeah.
and rewind back to the one step at a time. And because I do that on TTS all the time, and
Right.
God bless the people that play with me, and they live through my brain going faster than my mouth can go, and like trying to redo things and be like, no, wait, that was stupid, and redo this other thing. So
Right. Yeah, I assume that, like, as TTS is in real time, I assume that you won't be able to see what I'm doing until I hit the done button. So like I could throw a card down here and then it'll ask me where I want to put my buff, and then I can hit my Dark Forge Drain and then buff another creature, and then you won't be able to see any of that. And I'll be like, oh, I don't really like the way that looks. Undo. Okay, what if I do it this way? Okay, undo. What if I do it this way?
I think it should. I think you should see that. Like if you're going to muddle your way through a turn, you should be giving away information, and it just adds to the playability. Like if I'm just sitting there while you're working everything out and nothing is showing on my screen, then that feels like a very big disconnect for the flow of gameplay.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
just
so
feel like a lot of games are like that, right? Like you
Mhm.
just wait, and then when they finally make their play, it just boom, 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 and it shows you what they did.
So I think it's important. There's the practical of, okay, we can look at, there's the way that it affects the flow of the game, right? The actual game part of it. Do I get this kind of reset? When do I do it? Versus when you have like a digital client, especially if you're thinking about playing it on mobile, you need a way of like, oh shoot, I dragged the wrong card. And if you get one
Mhm.
card play, it's just like such a quality of life thing to be able to have that undo button.
For sure.
And then given the way that this game works, that I have full control until I decide that you do,
Mhm.
until either I decide my turn is over and it's back to you, or I have a deploy effect or some triggered effect that causes you to make a decision. So what my theory is that up until the time that you pass some sort of decision, whether it's the back to the action phase of the other person, or let's say I
A
play the Reveler
Taliesin,
and they get
or
to choose
yeah.
a spell. I think you can do all that you want to do and then hit undo until you pass some form of priority back to your opponent.
Hmm.
My theory on how this might get implemented.
And do you think that while I'm making those decisions and dragging cards out and pulling them back, and should and would my opponent be able to see all of that?
I think from
We're
now,
so
I'm going to
used
answer
we're
would,
so
not
used to
should.
Tabletop Simulator just being like,
And in person, I'm like just playing
and
card
in
games in
person for
person.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, ooh, that's not what I do. Can I undo that? And people are like, often, I love playing games. We're playing a game, right? So unless we're in a big tournament where it really matters, I'm like, yeah, of course, play whatever you want if that
Hmm.
some other line made more sense.
Yeah.
So I think they will not show all the things that you're doing especially if you undo it, because then that just causes a lot of confusion to the other player. It's like, oh wait, I thought you played that card. Oh no, they just played it and then undid that and then played a different card. So I think, and also it's like I'm also trying to think of like the game having to track what you're doing live versus the game only having to send the info to the server or the other player when you have decided what you're going to do is a much smaller load on servers rather than
Right.
tracking everything that you're doing. I know some games like in Hearthstone, you can see what card the opponent is hovering over,
Okay.
but that adds load to what you need to be the kind of information that you're transferring constantly. So I think that's another angle. I don't have a lot of experience with that. I am an amateur coder.
Right.
But I'm just trying to think of all the different layers that add to these decisions.
Folks, if you're not watching this on video, we are getting like live thoughts spewing out of Eli's head. So, and he's talking with his hands so much that his hands are going in front of the camera and blurring, and like he's animated about this, and his camera's going in and out of focus as it tries to focus on his hands gesticulating wildly.
I'm gonna make you an honorary French person, Eli, from talking with your hands so much. we tend to do that.
That's about as much as my French goes.
Okay, close enough.
So
Cool.
one thing I hope they do with this game is I hope there's a way to put a stop on done, because most of the time I'm just going to play a card and I don't want to have to click like drag this Stouthide Stegodon out and drop it down and then click done every time. I hope there's a like I'm going to tick this button.
I think that's exactly what it's going to be. I don't think there's any doubt there for me.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you play a card out, and then once you've made your final decision, you hit done. The undo is if you're like, oh no, I don't want to play this Stegodon, so you hit the undo button. It comes back to your hand.
Right, but I don't want to have to hit the done button every time. If I'm just going to play one card, I want to be able to turn the rewind and done off until I'm ready to use it.
I think in ways that some other digital card games handle that kind of thing of like, well, if you think about Magic the Gathering, there's constantly all these different steps in a turn, right? And it's like, okay, we're transitioning into this phase, and then this phase is ending, and then this phase is starting, and there's all these different triggers that you can interrupt with. And I know in the MTG arena, there are some settings that allow you to, oh, I want full control, I want to pause on these things, or no, I don't care enough about that, just pass through all of these.
Right. So, and that's what I'm hoping they do with this one, is that I can, until I'm ready to like to stop and not play just one card that I know I'm going to play, I can, either untick or tick a box or something, and then it'll just go and it'll flow smoother.
So the second you put a card down, that's it, you're done?
Yeah, unless I tell it
automatic.
Unless I tell it I want to stop because I may have more things or I want to think about this one.
Well, see, that's a hard thing to tell it to stop rather than tell it to go, because if it's automatically just going to go, you play the thing and then you're done.
Right. So,
how is it going to know you want to? Oh, a preemptive.
So before I play the card, I go over here and click this button on the, and I don't know why I just clicked the button on the actual image, but say that next to the word done, like this little corner here, but above the word done, there's just a button, like a pressed up and pressed down button. And then before I play a card, I come click on that button. And then now I have full control over my turn and I can rewind it. And then I click done and I'm done. And during your turn, I unclick it. And now now we come back to mine and I can just drag a card out and drop it. And it just goes without me having to click anything else. Something like that. Either one. That's what I would like for game flow.
Interesting.
There's a lot of information to be talked about based off this one screen.
For sure. Yeah. We haven't even gotten into the cards and stuff yet.
Why is Nova in Tempest? Isn't that Nova in the picture in the top, and the Tempest is the logo underneath it?
Wait, where we see, okay, we see
the player, the avatar.
The player, yes, has that. Yes, because that is a Nova, right?
Yeah. And that's Nova, and like if you look at the bottom one, it's I think it's Cersei, and she's got Necrium.
Yeah. She's got Necrium there, yeah.
I would assume.
I would assume that symbol is supposed to be the paired region, because you can tell by the Forgeborn what one half of the region is, and I'm assuming that's supposed to be what your other half is.
Right.
Also, it's probably wrong.
So then why is Cersei and Necrium there then, right?
Yeah.
You know what? I bet that's just the player avatar. Like somebody chose they wanted to look like Cersei, and then
right.
the Necrium symbol says click on that to see the Forgeborn.
I'm playing with the Forgeborn. Yeah, I'm like, yeah, exactly. Cool. All right. So one thing that I wanted to point out that I thought was really cool is these, like, they just put the image, the text box isn't there. They just kind of clean the card right down to a little square image, which I think is perfect. And then if you want to know what the text says, you can kind of just tap on it, and actually that'll be evident by this second image. So clearly this person has tapped on Sigmund Fraud, and then you get this little box to come up on the side that says what the text is. So I think that's pretty cool, and it's kind of a really great way to save space, which they really have to be economical with how they're displaying this if they're going to try to make it playable on an iPhone, right?
That was so I'm taking the Think Like a Game Designer course that Justin Gary is doing,
right,
and
Nice.
we got to think. I got to hear a little bit of his thoughts as they're developing this app on space, on exactly what you're talking about, how limited the real estate is on a screen like this, and what kind of implications come from that. What does that mean for their longer term development? Are they going to rethink some fundamental stuff? Or it was just, yeah, it was interesting to see when you make this kind of decision to, okay, we have a physical game that we have ambitions of making a digital, bringing that digital to reality reshifts the focus. And what does that mean? Because this game is still in its very early stages.
Yeah, like when you design this, when you adopt and say we're going to put this on phones and smaller screens, that's going to add a whole nother level of concern around set 15 when they go, hey, should we make a 6th lane? Because now you're messing with screen real estate.
Right. And that brings me to another thing is exalts. Like, you don't see a space at the bottom of this, and I'll show you one in a second here. But because exalt is just represented by or the exalt just affects the lane itself, what they've done is they've just populated the image of the exalt right in behind, like in the lane
It's
behind
a lane
your
background.
card.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
cool.
exactly. Which I think is genius. Yeah, just
That is amazing.
another really nice touch that they've done here, which I think is perfect. And you can probably tap the lane itself, I assume, to get the
Information about it. Yeah,
the information about it and what it actually does. Yeah. So yeah, I think this is another really nice, really genius touch that they've added to this. So in terms of, like, again, talking about economy of space, because the text is not there, they have to represent other things like whether a card is ready or not, and keywords like breakthrough and stealth and that kind of thing all into a card as well. And so if you look at this image here, just want to make sure it's displaying properly. Yeah, okay, you can see it. If you look at this image here, at the bottom of this, I keep calling it the Stealth-Hide Stegodon, but this is a
Decasaur.
A Decasaur. Thank you. So the Decasaur, I'm not sure what's going on with the lit up attack.
That's increased. That's an increase.
Oh, it's because it's increased. Okay, cool.
It's in its animation of increasing to 9 attack, so I think this is a snapshot mid animation.
Okay.
So it's like
Nice.
swing, you'll have a little sound
Right.
effect, little glowy thing, and the number goes it, and then it's going to be back to the regular.
Right.
symbol.
Okay. Yeah, and then at the bottom you see this like glowing symbol. That one there represents breakthrough, and so
I think it's aggressive because
aggressive. You're right. You're right.
It's getting aggressive from the other guy.
Yes. So yeah, exactly. Aggressive, and then Sigmund Fraud here over as well has aggressive, and then this other image here. So this guy here is defender.
Mm-hmm. There's a little logo.
Yeah, and then this guy here is obviously mobility with the 2 little arrows.
Mm-hmm. I wonder if there's a way to is it going to have like a number underneath it, or do you have to click on it to see what the mobility number is?
Yeah,
interesting.
I guess we'll see. Maybe there would be a number there if it was more than 1. But I guess we'll have to wait and see. The other really nice thing that they've done, you'll notice that this guy here is glowing. green, has a nice green glowing border, and this one does not. So what that means is that this guy is ready and you're able to use his ability, whereas this guy is exhausted.
Has been mobilized.
That's right. Yeah. So he is not ready for that's my understanding from what Shadow was saying.
I'm curious to know what when you say glowing, do you mean the little
The border.
green aura around it?
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I think that green aura, it's like, let's say, because this Fire Fist Uranti is clearly the player's Fire Fist Uranti, right? It's the side of the board that's on the bottom. It's what you're going to be seeing. So you wouldn't see, when I see that green glow, it immediately tells me clickable. This thing is
Right.
clickable. I can do something with it.
Yeah,
Mhm.
ready.
So, but I don't think you would see that the other player would see that green border because it's not your card that's clickable. But I
So
do
how-
see on the outside, there's those two like bright parts to the creature.
The white on the side. Yeah.
Can we look at one of the other pictures to see these other creatures if they have? See, they don't have that. Or now
That
we
means
look
they're
at the
activatable.
Sigmund there's no longer glowy bits, but there's the
Yeah.
space for the glowy bits. So
Okay.
I think that's if you have an activatable thing that will let you exhaust it, it will have that different shape. And if it is not yet exhausted, it will have the bright glowy bits. But as soon as you exhaust it, instead of tapping, those bright glowy bits go away and you see that empty shape.
Right.
I need a way to have glowy bits on my physical cards. That's really cool. It's awkward to tap or ready it's awkward to tap things in these lanes that are exactly the width of a card wide. And
Right.
If we get small enough lights and embed them into the border of a
there we go. There we go.
Another project for Ben.
I was telling him if
You should make a digital
I don't know
mat.
if any of you guys are Yu-Gi-Oh fans, but the dual discs that they played with in the anime,
Okay.
where it's just like a thing that sits on your wrist and you play the cards and there's like a, it reads it and then there's hologram projectors or whatever bringing all the monsters into reality. But
Right.
when I saw this thing, my first thought was you got to have something that like reads the card name when you slide it up, and then you'll have a screen gets populated by all of the creatures that they play.
Just AR glasses. We'll do it with AR glasses.
Exactly.
I'm asked to buy $1,000 AR glasses to play this game.
Yeah. Fast forward 5 years and we're playing. Yeah. Little 3D images pop out of each card, and there's a 3D model of each creature sitting on the card. Cool. Yeah. Anything else jump out to you guys that you want to talk about here? I think all of this seems to make a whole lot of sense to me. It seems very user friendly.
I think it's cool. There's a little scroll with a quill on the top right. I'm assuming you click on that and you get to see the ledger of how life changed or whatever changed, or this is what happened.
Yeah, history.
A list of every
whatever,
action.
Yeah,
I'm
that
assuming
could
we
be
have
that
the
for sure.
settings as the gear and the question mark. Maybe if there's a bug report, that's what
it's gonna be help or something like that.
Yeah. Maybe the rules or something.
Oh yeah, help. Like what do all the keywords mean and whatnot.
Yeah, that's probably right. Yeah. So are we good on this topic? Anything else jump out to you guys?
The one
what we're
thing
seeing
I'll
here?
say, we talked about with the lanes, I want to note that the creature that's in the back row still has a smidgen of space for that lane. So I'm assuming that's where you would click if there's an Exalt to read the Exalt card, right. Where the name would go there.
Mm-hmm.
Or that's a spot you can drag to drop cards on that lane.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. There's a lot of space over here on the left side. You see where it says Lyra and Sea Shrek. Like all of that is fully. There's a lot of information being conveyed through there about the game. But on the right hand side, you have that space with nothing in it, but pretty graphic.
Yeah, this is the space I think reserved for when you click
text. Yeah, okay, that's a place text will show up. All right.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming that Sigmund fraud thing right there, because we're seeing that like mid animation is when you do click OK and you see that, that's where things will, something happened, boom, ability trigger pop up, do the effect, then another trigger will pop up. Let's say if you had a spring drive, it says, heal one, and then your health goes up.
Yeah, that probably all pops up here.
The Decasaur is a zombie. The Decasaur itself is a zombie. So when you so this guy clearly activated Sigmund fraud. It increased from 8 to 9, and it told us what happened over here on the right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, pretty great stuff. I'm really impressed. It looks great. I don't even know what I would have imagined. I hadn't really thought about it that much, but this looks great to me, and I really love the design of the little square cards, and all
Mhm.
the information that's conveyed on there with just the art, and being able to just bring the rest of the information up as needed. I think that's perfect. We all know that if we're playing card games like this, typically the image is all we need once you've played the game, you
Mhm.
know. um
Unless you have modifiers on cards, then who knows what you've got.
yeah, for sure.
Right.
Yeah, yeah, it's interesting stuff for sure. um and then yeah, so I'm really excited for this. I don't think they've talked about timelines at all, right? Like,
I vaguely remember hearing an aggressive timeline was sometime this year, by like the end of the year,
that would be super impressive if they got that done by,
which
before the end of 2023. And you know what, based on what this looks like now, and I will say, in chatting with Shadow on Discord, he did say the game is fully playable with bugs. So that tells me that they're relatively close. I mean, bugs is not like, I mean, if the game's playable, for me, that's pretty close, even if there's bugs. And like,
If you're in the bug squashing phase, that's pretty good.
yeah, exactly. So yeah, I mean, it's totally believable for me at this point that it be available in 2023. And I guess the question remains, we talked about this a little bit when we had Burns on a few episodes ago, but the question remains of whether or not this will be only playable with your actual decks, like you have to scan your stuff in and play, or will there be like if somebody wants to buy 0 decks and just play this game only on the digital client, will they be able to? I do not know the answer to that question.
I kind of think it's like an inevitability that you have to have some way.
You're kind of locking out a huge section of the market potentially.
Hmm.
And you know what, that'll potentially, like, actually, there's no doubt in my mind that if you make this available for people to play digital only, there's no doubt in my mind that it would
Yeah.
bring some people, not all, but a good amount of people to the physical game as well.
Hmm.
But it's a totally separate, like making this playable client is a totally separate project from being able to buy decks that only exist physically and live in your collection. So like they can do this to make sure that this works and then turn their attention to that, or they could just be doing, all you have to do in the background is set up a store where people click buy, and all of a sudden you have this stuff in your inventory that you already have, just don't own the physical deck.
Right.
And then it just works with this. So I'm sure that's coming, and it's just what the work they're doing here is in no way involved or require, they're not dependent on each other.
Hmm.
Right. I know for sure it was said that you will 100% be able to just scan your decks into this
Yeah.
and play your actual decks. So
Yeah.
that's exciting for me because, like, being able to play this on a bus, or downtime at work when I don't have a physical buddy to play with. You can be sitting wherever at a pool tray.
Or
When your kids
dangerously
are
in your bed, not sleeping when you
not
should be
sleeping. Just one more game. Yeah.
which
I
is
just
much
the
easier when you can queue up instead of going onto the Discord at 1 a.m. and saying, "Hey, anybody want to play?"
Hmm.
right.
And that being said, I did ask as well, um, if there would be a way for people to speak through this app, or if there would just be a chat thing, right, to explain things, or to whatever, ask a question, whatever the case may be. And Shadow's answer was, so far we just have a connect to Discord button. So you will be able to, I'm
Right.
not sure exactly how that would work, but you will be able to connect through Discord to actually physically speak to whoever you're playing against.
Yeah, you'll be able to see their names so that you can get together on Discord and chat. Again, that's also like a whole separate project to releasing. You can release this client with just a button that says "Let's talk on Discord," and
Yeah.
that Version 1.2 is the one where they have the all in-game chat if they want to do that.
Yeah.
Because Shadow said something similar to me, but I was asking the question of like, oh, would there be a friends list thing? And it seems like, well, if you have Discord, and you know, they are a very small team, and like we talked about, aggressive timing. But it's like, well, if you don't need to implement a whole like friend list and chat thing of if you could just connect Discord to the game and then let Discord be your friend list and chat service, that saves a lot of time and money on the development, which I'm perfectly happy using Discord for that if that means I get to play this game faster.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
So we've talked about this a lot, and we have totally not gotten to Kuz, I need to hear about your May win. Like we played this, I've been in this league forever. Like I played in a bunch of these leagues and never gotten close to being the number one guy, and yet somehow you took down the May TTS league.
Yeah, it's kind of a funny story too. I was at work with Burns, and he comes over to my desk and says, I forgot to sign up for May League. So I asked if I could join. This was like, May 2nd or something. And then he was told, if you can find a buddy to join to be your, like, to keep it even and be your round one opponent, then sure. So he comes over and says, Kuz, can you join? You want to join this May League? And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. I forgot to even do that myself. And I hadn't realized that it had kind of become a more serious competitive thing, because a few months ago when I had played previously, it was a very casual play whatever deck you want. You don't have to play the same deck throughout. It was more just another way to get people together playing the game. So I said, yeah, sure. And I started asking, like, is it just one deck throughout, whatever? So Burns answered all my questions, and it turns out it is like a lot more competitive. It's a legit bronze event where you register a deck and play it throughout, and which was perfect because I wanted to get my my triple shambling life gain deck up to silver, or at least taking steps towards getting it to silver. And so I did. I joined with that deck. I played Burns in my first round, and I guess I'll do a little bit of a very brief, kind of tournament report, for lack of a better word. So yeah, I played Burns the first round, and I'm just gonna bring up. I made a list of the guys that I played. Okay, here it is. Yeah, so I played Burns in the first round, and when I looked at his list at the beginning of the game, I got immediately worried because he has some pretty solid stuff in there. So he was playing a green purple deck, and he had a double Dreadbolt in the deck, which when you're playing Shamblers is like one of the worst things that can be, because if they can just immediately remove your threats, those Shamblers prior to combat, that's kind of the key to taking out the Shambling decks. So he had double Dreadbolt because he had a Betrayer, and he had a double Shambling himself in his own deck. He had two Shamblers, which kind of makes the Shamblings somewhat even right there. Just the fact that he can take mine out so easily. He had a Carnivorous Taro, which is kind of a kindred creature, basically in set 2. It gains attack and health based on every time that you gain life. He had Army Commander level 2 and a bunch of other really good cards in there. Ultimately, my life gain was just too much, and it went the whole distance. And I just finished with more life, quite a bit more life than he had. I think there was just like, the Shamblers probably canceled themselves out based on him being able to Dreadbolt. He also had like Botanimate and some other like really nice removal options. But ultimately, just the rest of my deck had just so much more life gain that I was able to finish with more than him. Then I played Cardboard Newt Sam, and he was playing a really incredible Nexus Core Prime Syntheta's Laboratory deck with an Apocamancer and a Stitcher. And it was a tormenting Stitcher. So every time the Stitcher came out, he was able to like kill one of his things to kill one of my things. And you just had, because of Nexus Core Prime and Syntheta's Laboratory, just had so many minions and bodies out there that he was able to trigger his tormenting pretty easily. But anyways, like really, really, really cool deck that we were joking about it on Discord afterwards, but it was like he had so many triggers and like his stack of the things that he could do ended up being like so long. He was able to like control the board pretty well. But I was basically like, okay, just let me know when it's my turn because I can't even follow what you're doing here at this point. But again, ultimately, just the amount of shambling and life gain, I was able to out life gain and outmaneuver that deck as well. Then I played Nathus, another Sam, and he had a Mantis, Forge Seal, Spell Slinging, Tempest Utera deck. That had really a lot of cool stuff going on, but just no major threat, or at least no major threat that came out to really like make me concerned. Lots of cool stuff going on, and he was 2-0 at that point as well. So clearly it's a good deck, but just like the way that things landed, there was nothing really came out that was like a major concern. And I was able to win that one as well. So at this point I'm 3-0. Excuse me. At this point, I'm 3-0 and going into the last week. And I play against Gorgeous or Mike. And he had a Rumble Spark deck, which is really cool. I hadn't played against one up until this point. So that was really cool to see and to learn about how the Rumble Spark works. And I'm just trying to make sure that I don't take damage from whatever's in that lane. But he's got Rumble Spark plus Utera, so he didn't go the like Darkheart Sorcerer, which is a lot more of what's going on in the meta right now. But he had a Mantis and he had 6 creatures that do face damage or breakthrough in that red deck. So either creatures that will do face damage when they hit the board, or breakthrough creatures. So he just had like tons of ways to trigger that Rumble Spark energy into the Rumble Spark embodiment, and was able to do it pretty consistently. So it was a nice little twist on what I've since learned is the kind of the meta, but with the Darkheart. Ultimately, things went well for me in that game as well, and I was able to win. But it was a really neat, interesting deck that he had there. And then I was 4-0, and so at that point I was like, okay, how does this work? And we were waiting to see, but Mundungu ended up winning his final match, where he was 3-0 as well. And so there ended up being 2 4-0s, myself and Matt Stanky, who is Mundungu. And so they decided that we were going to do like a top cut of just he and I. And then so I sat down, and sure enough, he was playing the Rumble Spark Darkheart Sorcerer combo, which was like really, really cool to see, because he played it really well. And in the first half of the game, things were going fairly well for me. And as we got later and later in the game, his pieces started to come together, and man, did that thing do a ton of damage. So I will say that we recorded that match, and by the time you're hearing this, that match is available for you to go check out on our YouTube channel. So definitely go see that. We had Joel, Tater Tot, Eat a Lot, and Weekend Nate do the commentary. So we kind of have 2 third-party commentators for that match, and it's fairly entertaining. Those guys are great.
You just rail against your purple deck the whole time.
He definitely had some comments. The guy hates purple, and it is pretty entertaining. But yeah, definitely check out that match. It was pretty epic. At one point, I want to say I was up like over 80 life, and he was down, I want to say, in the 30s and high 20s or 30s or something like that. And the game ended up a lot closer than that. So he did a ton of damage in the last couple of rounds. So definitely check it out. It is entertaining to see that deck go off. Ultimately, I just like had too much life and too much shambling, and I was able to drain enough to handle the deck. But man, that is pretty incredible to see that Rumble Spark with the Darkheart Sorcerer just kind of do that loop and trigger and do so much face damage. And he had maybe I'll say Eli can probably help me with the name of the card, because Trey, you're no help on that category. There's there's a red card that lets you do two things if you have an elemental.
Yes, Elementalist Ritual.
I can picture everything but the title. I have that card. I've played it. I can picture the text box.
So one of those things says if you have increase all non-combat damage by X. I think it's 2, 3, and 4, based on whatever the level it is. So at one point he played that card. You'll have to check out the stream. But and I might be getting this slightly wrong, but it's a variation of he played that card, activated his Forgeborn ability, which allowed him to do face damage or board damage for every spell he played. I think it's Stimbolt. Am I wrong?
Gathering Storm.
Gathering Storm. Thank you. I always get those two confused. So he does the Gathering Storm. So every time he plays a spell, he gets to do, I think it was 6 damage to a creature or player, increased by either 2 or 3 or 4 because of that spell. And he then proceeds to play spells. The Darkheart Sorcerer procs doing face damage plus
increased face damage
plus Gathering Storm does increased face damage for playing the spell. Then that triggers the Rumble Spark, you know, and then the Rumble Spark dies and that becomes a spell itself. It's just like this crazy loop. And he just did, like, I want to say 30-ish damage in that one turn, to me, which was just bonkers. So that deck is incredible. It's so much fun to watch. So definitely check out the stream. I'll digress there unless you guys have any questions or anything about the league. But yeah, it was super fun to just play, you know, what I think is a world-class deck, with the triple Shamblers, with the Mantis and everything else that I've got going on in that deck. It's just a ton of fun to play that deck. And I'm not sure how much fun it is to play against, but I had a blast and everybody in the tournament was super gracious and a lot of fun to play against. So thanks to everybody who played, and that was a ton of fun.
I just want to point out here that in the finals, you had this degenerate triple Shambler deck against this Darkheart Sorcerer deck, and those were all of the big explosive plays of you going to 1,000,000 life and him doing 30-something damage to you. All of those involve purple, which all that does is prove that Tater Tot is right, that purple is dumb. And if you're not playing purple, you're probably not winning, or if you're winning without purple, it's because nobody showed up playing purple.
I think it's really strong right now. Go ahead, Eli.
Well, I was going to say, when you were talking about your experience at the May League, and you talked about Cardboard Newt's deck, I was playing a Madlewinter deck with a green that had both Dendrify and Shardplate Delvers. Not Shardplate Delver. Delver's the dinosaur that, when replaced, gets bigger. It's the thing that comes into play and replaces another creature with an Oak Father.
Shroudthorn Splicer.
Thank you. And everything was minion. I couldn't put when I put my Madlewinter out, I couldn't put the Nexus Core behind anything because that Tormenting Stitcher was so scary.
Yeah.
And the fact that he had his own the Nexus Core means when you put a Stitcher out, if you put a Stitcher in that lane, you can replace the Stitcher since it is a minion. So if you have a bunch of minions out, if you just put a Tormenting Stitcher out and then bring back the lower level Tormenting Stitchers, like, let me just kill 2 of your giant Oak Fathers. Mm-hmm. And so that game, absolutely, I had some flashbacks when you were talking about his deck.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, plus he's got an Apocalypser, so if that thing happens to be out, he's also either killing more things or doing face damage. Not
Stitcher is also purple.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Yes.
So you're talking about Apocalypser, yeah.
And I will note his deck is like, when I was looking originally for the Madlewinter combo, his deck has exactly what you would want because it has a Pokemancer which is within region, so you don't need the Flame Shaper to get to damage from the loop. But it also has Duplication Dome, which I just love with a Pokemancer for anything that makes extra bodies.
Yes.
Yeah, that would be, in theory, when I was theory crafting that combo, it was like that's the perfect deck for it.
Yeah,
Very
it is super good for sure. Yeah, that is a fun deck. He also has another cutthroat creature in that deck. He's got a cutthroat Drake to go along with his tormenting Stitcher. So
Also
not only
purple.
is yeah, and he's got a Shambler in that deck.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy. It's crazy. Yeah, it's a crazy deck for sure. Yeah, and to your point, Trey, talking about like, you know, all these great purple decks, and I think it's a temporary thing, and it seems like, you know, we're only just starting into the second set, and so, you know, right now it seems like purple's been the best deck for 100% of this game's life cycle so far.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it is a legit not concern, but it is a legit observation that purple is probably the strongest right now, but that's a right now thing, and as more comes out and as more sets come out and more combos get discovered, you know, things will shift for sure. There's zero doubt about it. And you know, in 2 years from now, we'll be talking about how green is degenerate and we hate green and why is green this and that. So, you know, we just got to deal with it for now and embrace it and have fun with it, and it is what it is. That's my opinion anyways. Cool, so that was fun. Eli, you played in the league as well, right? How did you do?
I did not do well. Let's see, how did I do? I think I
want to
went
say
like...
you finished in the top 10 anyways you finished in the top half for sure.
Oh, maybe I'm just remembering because I got, with the games that I got destroyed at, I got super destroyed. So yeah, I went. Yeah, I guess I went 2 and 2.
2 and 2. Okay, well, I thought for sure I saw you in like the 8th spot or 6, 7, 8 spot.
Yeah, 14th, but
yeah, okay. Maybe I was looking at somebody else
before everyone finished their
enough.
last games.
Close enough.
I was sitting somewhere up there, but
maybe that's what I was looking at. Cool. Trey, you didn't partake this month?
No, I haven't played a lot of Solforge because I've been out of the country on on vacations. But
you vacationed in Canada, right?
I vacationed in England with a stop through on the way home in Canada, where I met you on the other side of the country. No.
Trey messages me, "Are you in Calgary by any chance?" I'm like, "Calgary is 2,000 miles away from here." No, I'm not in Calgary, Trey.
But I was sitting next to a guy that looked exactly like him, enough that I almost leaned over and went, "Matt." But I have played a little bit. I got to play last night. I played one of our resident far west people, Colin, on the 5th cycle, he's in Hawaii, and so his time zone matches up perfectly with when I'm about ready to play some Solforge. So we play pretty often late at night, mainland US time. I did get to live a dream last night, though. That was pretty exciting. We played, and we both have purple in our decks, but just to set the scene, I was pretty dominant. I had all my guys out. They were in the front rows. He didn't have a whole lot. But then he made a play on his turn where he throws down Runescarred Pit. And Runescarred Pit is the Exalt that makes a 6/6 zombie brute, and all your other Runescarred Pits make 6/6 zombie brutes. And so, excuse me, he went from nothing to a dominant board position in one play. And it was pretty exciting from his side of the table because he played this Runescarred Pit. We went to combat. He destroyed my side of the table, and I'm left with one guy, and he has 4 guys. And his 4 guys are a 6/6 zombie brute, a 6/2 zombie brute, a 6/2 zombie brute, and a 5/6 level 3 Darkheart sorcerer. So he is commanding.
It's a lot of 6s.
It's a lot of 6s on the damage side. It's a lot. And it comes into play in a minute why the 2s matter. So he had the forge. So now we're back to me, and I get to play first the next round. And this is where I get to live the dream. So I'm playing randomly. It's not like super powerful, but it's cool when it happens. I have a blue and a purple, and they both have an Alluvian in them. I have a Betrayer Alluvian in the blue deck. And so on my turn, before he ever goes, he has 4 guys. They're pretty big. I have 1 guy left who's not opposing either of them. He doesn't get to trigger his dark card. He doesn't do any of this. I go first. My first play is to play an Alluvian.
Okay, wait, hang on, time out. What's an Alluvian? I'm not familiar with this.
Sorry, an Alluvian is a modified creature from the new set. That
Okay.
is, it's the purple creature that is the one you want to underplay. So it's a something.
right.
Alluvian. My blue one was an armored Alluvian, and so the Alluvian is the one you want to play the level 1 when you're in cycle 2,
Right.
and it gives a creature minus something. So the level 1 one gives -3/-3.
Gotcha.
So yeah, that's what the. I was so careful to make sure I explained what Runescarred Pit was. So I play an Alluvian, and I shrink his Dark Art Sorcerer. He becomes a 2/3 from a 5/6 to a 3, -3/-3. I happen to be able to use my Solforge or my Forgeborn ability, which is blow up one of your guys to play another guy. So I blew up that Alluvian, and I played the second Alluvian that I had in my hand to shrink his 6/6 guy down to a 3/3. So now he's got 3/3, 6/2, 6/2, and 2/3. My one remaining creature was a level 3 Vid Icarus, so I just machine gunned his side of the board before he had any chance to play. It was so amazing.
That is the dream. Every time I see Vid Icarus, I'm like, that needs to happen at some point in my life.
I did. I machine gunned his whole side of the board, and the Red Wasteland was on Red Wasteland is an exalt that when one of your creatures dies pre-combat, the creature in that lane gets bigger. That you have in that lane gets bigger. So when I blew up my own Alluvian to play my other Alluvian, Vid Icarus got even bigger. So like he went from like he was on the back foot. He became dominant, wiped my side of the board almost completely. Before he even gets to go, I machine gun his whole side of the board, and now Vid Icarus is huge. It was awesome. Living the dream.
Don't you know, Trey, you're not supposed to play Aloyan right now?
Oh, it's for fun. It's fun. I'm not playing for money. It's for fun. This is definitely not a deck you take to play for money somewhere, but for fun, I like Aloyan. It's
yeah, I'm kidding. We just talked about how amazing that
Sentina's Laboratory
and Nexus Core Prime. Yeah, I always have a hard time with it. We just talked about how great that deck is. So clearly, there's some exceptions.
Something I hadn't really thought about, but we were talking about that Elementalist Ritual before. That's a nice card to pair with the Vid Icarus. Increase the non-combat damage to be able to kill bigger things to just
bing.
Yeah, I've been playing a
little
bit of
the light bulb go on over his head right here.
I've been playing a little bit of the purple version of that card, which is if you have a beast, you can do 2. And one of those says that every time a creature dies this turn, gain life. So if you're going into like combat where 4, 5, 6 things are going to die, and you've played that card, it's pretty epic. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Yeah. So on that note, Eli, have you had recently an interesting play that
you did something cool at the last tournament in Denver, didn't you? And that where you did the thing?
So when I was in Denver, I was just there for the side event. I did this. There was a limited, like a sealed event that we did in Denver on the Sunday, but it was like this cool draft format. So let me see if I can describe how it went. They opened enough boxes for there to be 2 decks per person, and then each person was given 2 of the same faction.
Okay.
So you got to pick, do I want this deck or do I want this deck? And then you'd pass it to the next person.
We pass the other one to the next person.
You pass the other. You keep one and you pass the other one on. And then someone to the other side of you will give you a new deck. And at any point, if you have 2 decks of different regions, you're allowed to say, all right, I'm done. These are the 2 decks that I want. And you're out of the draft pool. And then they would just give it to the next the person next to you. You get out of your seat. They would pass it an extra seat over. And then I think if they had a thing of if you end up when everybody else is out with 2 of the same faction, you get to pick one and they will give you a random deck of another faction. That was a very interesting, because you start to see all the decks that are going to be in the tournament as you're drafting. And And that was I forget what Alex called that, but that was an interesting draft style to play.
So I have a question about this. So I start with a Loyan, and the person next to me starts with Tempest. I take one of my 2 Loyans, I keep it, I pass the one left. The person to my right hands me a red deck. Now I'm looking at a red and blue deck for the next one. Can I keep the red deck and pass the blue one?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm not stuck with my first one.
So
All
you
right, so
can't
I'm
swap.
It's every time you have 2, now comes the decision, which one do I want to hold on to, and then pass the other one on.
That's cool.
And I went for I went, I think I went 2-1 in, we did 2 of these sealed events, or actually no, we only did 1 of the drafting, and then we just did a regular sealed afterwards. But I went 2-1. I got a duplication dome, and then I was looking for a deck with just deploys because I love the card duplication dome, and
I do
was
too.
That's a clear build around card.
Mm-hmm.
Paired it with a deck that had 5 deploy creatures, and I got absolutely destroyed. I think it was Cody who I played in the first round. Absolutely destroyed me, Fizzlesticks. And then the next 2 games went a little bit closer, a little bit more interesting. But
cool.
Yeah.
That's a neat format. I wonder if there's a place in this game at all for like a more true draft where you're actually drafting cards. I know that can get messy, and I wonder if you just have to throw the like only 2 factions things out the window, but that could be fun. You take 4 decks, you sit down with 4 people, and you just draft cards. I don't know.
You're welcome to try it, and other people can try it. I just don't.
I'll report back.
Like, that is not what this TCG is. This TCG is about half decks playing together. You just become.
It just seems like silly.
What you do with the cards is up to you. You know, if you
you do whatever you like.
Cool format.
No.
Yeah, I don't see there being a huge future for like that format, but I think it would be silly fun to try. Probably be some really, you talk about degenerate combos, you could probably end up with some really messed up combos.
If we're talking degenerate combos, so this was kind of my play of the week. I have this Rumblespark Elementalist deck or Nova Elementalist deck, and a purple deck that has a Shambling Summoner, a Shambling Moeba, and a Darkheart Sorcerer. And I killed my own Rumblespark first with what's the dinosaur? Stampeding Mongosaur. So I hit that, killed one of their creatures, went behind the Darkheart to proc and revive, and then I used my Soul Rip Forgeborn to kill it, proc another thing, play another thing, and then I used
Shambling all along.
Shambling
all along.
Well, so technically the Rumblespark doesn't trigger Shambling because instead of being destroyed, this other thing happens. And Shambling triggers off of being destroyed.
Yeah.
So it doesn't proc a Shambling.
Right, but if your Shambler's in the Rumblespark lane.
So if the Shambler's in the Rumblespark lane and something dies to trigger it, it will activate. Yeah. But the killing the Shambler, killing the Nova, the Rumblespark itself, doesn't end up with a destroyed creature because instead of being destroyed, transform it. So it never blocks the Shambling trigger in the first place.
Neat. Okay, well that's good.
But if you post combat, your Rumblespark dies and your Shambling is living, then the Rumblespark goes, and if something else died, it will be able to trigger and revive the Shambling. And then I killed it with a Mongosaur, a Soul Rip, and then an Infernal Ritual, and then it also died in combat. So I got it to play the spell 4 times in one turn with a level 3 Darkheart out.
That's just busted. And you had a Shambler out for all that, did you?
I don't recall. I may have had a Shambler out, but I don't think it actually triggered that turn.
Oh, right, because it doesn't die. It doesn't die.
Died.
Right. Okay, cool.
Right
on. That's a neat one for sure. And since we're talking about kind of these degenerate plays and plays of the week, one of the ways, and I forget who it was even against, but I had it was in the May tournament, and I had I had the person down to like 10 health, 10, 12, under 14 anyways. No, actually it was a little bit more than 14, because what had happened is that I had a beast in play and I played Soul Reap. And then when you play Soul Reap with a beast in play, and it was a level 3, you get to do 7 damage to the opponent. And then you could do 7 damage to a creature, and then you heal 7 twice. So I gained 14 life, did 7 damage to a creature, and did 7 damage to the opponent. But I had 2 level 3 shamblers out at the same time, and then I used the damage not to do damage to his creature but to my own. And so what happened is I shambled twice, doing 6 damage, and then I did 7 damage to the opponent, and I forget what the exact life total was, but basically I played my Soul Reap onto my own creature with 2 level 3 shamblers out, and that's basically how the game ended. So that was like that was a pretty epic finale to the game. I don't recall how close the game was, but I definitely did not want to go to combat. Their board was a lot stronger than mine, and I think I only had those 2 shamblers out, so I had to kill one of my shamblers, but it was worth it because that's what finished off the game. So always looking for ways to kill my own guys.
So doing some quick math, you healed 20 and dealt 13 damage.
Yeah. So that, yeah. Thank you. Math is not my strong suit.
I like it. I like numbers.
Right on. Cool. The next thing that we wanted to, and I think we're starting to run a little bit low on time, so we're probably going to start to wind things down here. But I'm going to drag this massive soapbox over here over to Trey, and it's a big soapbox. I'm just going to pull it over and
it has to
set
be.
it up. I'm going to set it up over here, and Trey, you can step up and
Okay.
and yell to the clouds, as you say.
So in the moment when I listened to this, it was I very wanted to jump on my soapbox, and I did a little bit on Discord, but I've had time to mellow a little bit about it, so it won't be quite as soapboxy as it might have been in the moment that it came out. I'm a big language guy. Like, I think language and correct usage of language and understanding, having us all have the same understanding of what words mean, is super important, because you get, in so many situations, you will say a thing and I interpret it the way that I understand it, but you don't mean it that way. But then I've taken the wrong meaning from what you said, and we're having some argument that we both agree on the premise of, but because we have a different understanding of language, we're just yelling at each other for no reason. And that, you see that repeated throughout society a lot. And that's not what this is about. But I am a big language guy. I like games. I like this constrained sandbox that we have. And I think the language in rules and how language is used to implement the logic of games is fascinating to me and very important for us all to understand a game. One of the things that pops up alongside games like this, and as the culture of gaming has evolved from the mid 90s or early 90s on, is we've had all these terms that are not well defined, as like they're not part of the rules of the game, but just as a culture we understand them. Rules like proc, like Eli used proc several times. So if you're not in the culture of gaming, you don't know that proc means the thing that this guy does happens. Like and that has a definition, and we kind of all understand it. And proc is one, buff is one. Buff came about in the mid 90s from video games, where you would, in some video game, you would cast a spell on somebody and it would make them better and stronger, and now they're buffed. And then the debuffed is one. So anyway, I like etymology. I like all that stuff. It's important to me that we all communicate effectively. So one of the terms that I thought we all understood, that is apparently not, is the term meta. I don't like it. I don't really care for the term meta, the way people throw around meta, but now that I've heard other people explain their understanding of the word meta, it makes more sense why it has grated on my nerves, because people use meta in a way that it doesn't mean. Meta is not an acronym. at all. And I don't, if you understand it as an acronym, then that's fine for you, I guess, but you have developed your understanding from someone else that eventually, that sometime in the past, somebody retronymed this. Somebody thought meta, I don't understand what that means. What must it means? Oh, it means these words. And it's an acronym for that. It is not at all. In the English language, we have, it's a prefix. In the English language, we have we have unhappy, the two things. We have we have meta is a prefix that comes from, originally it's a Greek prefix. So it's been around forever. And it's, used in English, it is, meta means if you have meta something, it's going to be a meta game or meta data about, like, if the easier way to explain it might be about a picture. Like in computers, you have a picture, you have metadata. The picture is the data, like what you're looking at, that's the data. The name of the picture, the time the picture was taken, the type of device the picture, that's all metadata. That's data about the data. And in the mid 90s, when this term came about, the meta game became the game about the game. And that's a little difficult to understand, so I'll explain it. The game about the game is, for example, in Solforge, we have purple and green with minions and life gains and such. That is a well-known deck. Whatever your list of 10 cards is not exactly what somebody else's list of 10 cards is, but the type of deck of having a purple deck that gains life or drains life and makes them into, like, that's a well-known deck. So if you have a purple and green deck, or you have a blue and red wizards deck, like whatever is doing well, usually it's what's doing well at the time, or what people are playing, not necessarily doing well, but what people are playing, that is the meta game. And if you go to a tournament or you go to an event, and let me back up a little bit, there's, wherever people are playing is a meta game, and people will shorten that to meta because meta game is a lot of syllables to say. So people will just say the meta. The meta game happens around wherever people play. So the fifth cycle, the people that play in fifth cycle tournaments, they have their own meta game. The people that play in your local area, that sit around, like Matt, you play at your work. If you guys have your own little developed game where you have some deck that you play that does really well, and somebody else brings a deck just to beat that, like it may not be the strongest deck in a vacuum, but in your particular area where you play, in that metagame, they have attacked the metagame rather than attacking the overall game. So your metagame might be somebody bringing something that defeats your triple sham. Maybe there's a card that says shamblers have to be torn up and thrown away, and that card sucks against anybody that's not playing shamblers, but against a deck that has 3 shambles in it, that's going to be pretty destructive. And so bringing that is you're attacking a metagame. And that's what meta means. It's just important to me that we all develop the similar understanding of what these terms mean. And meta is not an acronym at all. It is a word that is a prefix for metagame, and it is the game about the game. And wherever people are playing, that's the metagame for that area, whether it's online or Kingwood, where I am, or in Canada, or wherever you are, wherever you're playing, you have your own metagame that may mirror somebody else's metagame. Like, you may know, when we play online, that's the best people in the world playing. And so I may move from the best people in the world playing to playing here with people in Kingwood, knowing that the people who have done the most work have proved that purple and green work really well. So now I'm going to go to my metagame and bring a purple and green deck. And now that becomes a metagame there. So anyway, it's just, I got real excited about it when I was listening to other people talk about I got real excited about it when I heard when other people talking about it and having a fundamental misunderstanding of where that term comes from and what it means, because I don't like, language is so crucial to me for us to understand each other and have common definitions of words. And so if you understand it as an acronym, then your understanding originally stems from somebody that did not understand what the word meant and made it up what they thought it meant and then ran with it. So I also kind of think that's fascinating too, how things diverge like that. And then somebody didn't understand it. They made up what it meant. They ran off and started teaching people what it meant. And then now that's all come back together. And now we have different understandings of what the word means, smashing together in one area. So anyway, that's my soapbox today. Go ahead.
I wasn't keeping up with this, so I'm curious, what was the acronym that they
all right. So I don't know if it's calling somebody out but this is I was catching up on the Charge Plated podcast. I don't know, my brain went blank for a moment. Charge Plated podcast, and they were talking about terms that people use, and I've had other people that are new to these games ask me about terms. The acronym that they said that it stood for was most efficient threat available, which very much sounds like a retronym to me. Somebody looked at the word meta and went, what could this mean? And I don't know that it's a prefix. It must stand for this. And so they were calling something meta because like your triple shambler deck, that would be meta because it's the most efficient threat available. And then
but it's not common, right? It's not something that everybody's playing because it's unique.
But whatever, maybe shambling is the most efficient threat available. Yeah. So
life gain, drain, whatever.
Yeah, that was the term, and it just I'm so wrapped up in making sure that we're all communicating correctly that it just clenches me inside because I'm 47 years old. I Magic the Gathering came out when I was a junior in high school. So like I was in the middle of it. Like I was there when it was all created. And this is me yelling at clouds now. But not, I was there when it was created, and you have this in me. You have somebody that was there when it was created, and who cares this much about language that we all have a similar understanding of what things mean. That just came to a head, and like I was like, that is not what that means at all. I don't know where you got this. Sorry. So
I just want to say I appreciate your passion for language.
Okay.
I remember when it was a linear algebra professor that I had who. Anytime you were talking in class and you said a pronoun, it, this, that, as soon as one of those words came out of your mouth, he shut you down. I'm like, what are you talking about? Be clear. Because it's like, especially when you're learning to talk about math, there is this level of ambiguity that you have to get away from that is spread out through all language everywhere. But it's something to just... that isn't really at the forefront of our minds because we get close enough, right? You can just, the thing I'm talking about, meta, the acronym they came up with, like, helps, like, I can easily understand coming to that through context clues of what meta means, right? In the context that you hear it. But we often don't find ourselves in a situation to question that. And that professor was my first time, like, really drilling into me, like, how much communication is ambiguous in our day-to-day lives and in this context of math to see like you can't have this ambiguity. So how do you deal with communicating with as little or no ambiguity at all? Very difficult.
Yeah. And I'm super passionate about making sure we all understand things. The same things, understand things the same. And again, I was being my brain trailed off and I was ambiguous there. I'm very passionate about making sure that we all have similar understandings of what words mean so that when we discuss them, we're not arguing for no reason just because we have different understandings of what words mean.
The views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the speakers. They do not explicitly reflect or represent the channel's policy or the views held by the Fifth Cycle.
They are correct.
Down with English. Math is the universal language.
Eli, you're working on an event coming up. Tell us about it.
Yeah. So like I talked about earlier, I was at TCGCon Denver. I was able to do some side events, and I won a couple of these promo decks. Let's see. Can you?
Let me see if I can make
it's just
no, that's not it.
So for those of you who are not looking at the video, it's just a typical deck, but the Forgeborn card is like a pencil sketch with no color in it. The whole card is just pencil sketches. It's really cool. I picked one up from the first one. I traded for, I don't remember who I bought one from, but it's cool looking.
All right, we'll get a nicer picture. We'll put it up in the Discord because it's not really focusing. But so my plan, I have a couple of these decks. I ran an event I wanted to run an event like this for a while, and this was the perfect opportunity to, if you didn't have a chance to go to one of these Ultimate Championships and earn some of these sketch promo decks, I'm going to put on a tournament where it's going to be a TTS tournament. This first one for this, what is it called? The Fathers of Composed Gliders deck, where everyone has to use this deck as one of their halves, but take something from your own collection to pair it with. And so in this tournament, they're going to be like half mirror matches where half of the deck is the same, and the winner of the tournament gets shipped the deck. I just thought it would be a nice way to get people who weren't able to have to come and earn these decks to, spread the promos out around the community.
That's so cool. So obviously this is going to be a TTS event.
So yes, this will be a TTS event. For Saturday the 17th, I don't have time figured out exactly, but my guess is it'll be probably starting somewhere what would be the morning for the PST, so that trying to, because I'm in America, so that's where the time is centered around me, but I want to try to get it available to as many people as possible. Yeah, and that's the plan.
Make sure you send me the image of that promo card as well as the link to the event, and we'll post that in the pod references.
I'm pretty sure if you just link the deck, like they have the pencil sketch images show up when you link the deck.
Yes,
neat.
that is a smarter way to do things.
Perfect. And you'll get to see the deck.
Yes, importantly, there's some robots in there. So if you've got a Betrayer Robot Synergy card that you're really trying to milk some use out of, this might be the perfect opportunity to dust that deck off.
Perfect. So what are we doing next here? Trey, did you want to do the deck pairing? We're kind of running short on time.
Yeah, so we started this last time, and it got some good reviews. We have a lot of one of the things that people do when they do podcasts is they do these decks, and a listener will bring a deck, and they'll be like, "Hey, what should I pair this with?" And people will look at that deck, and they'll be like, "Oh, I see this, and you should look for this, you should look for this and this and this, and something to pair it with." And one of the things that we started last time is, instead of saying you should look for this and this and this, we have a big pile of decks in the Kingwood Hobbies deck market, which is me, and like it's kind of a commercial, but it's also a nice giant pile of decks and a collection of decks to look through. So one of the things the way that we want to change this and make it a little better going forward is invite the audience to play. And so we're going to announce the new deck for the next week as part of the segment. So we don't have time. I kind of had one this week. I was the only one that put some time in. I threw it together at the last minute. So I'm just going to push this deck off to the next week. So if you want to use Eli's deck, collection manager, Eli's collection manager is an amazing tool to use for looking at decks and looking at collections. So if you want to pull a collection from Kingwood Hobbies, all lowercase, all one word, you will look at the collection that we're playing with and pulling a deck from. So the deck that we're going to be doing next time is called The Flames Who Become Troopers. And so if you want to go check out the flame, it's a sundered flames. It's a Tempest deck, and if you want to go look through what exists on the Kingwood Hobbies just as an exercise to play along with us, the Flames Who Become Troopers is what we will be looking at next time, and we'll be coming back with, hey, I think you should be looking for this, and here are some of the decks that I think that you might want to pair this with if the Kingwood Hobbies deck market collection was your collection.
Cool. So here's the deck. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on it.
That's not it. No, load the other deck.
That's not it.
That's the first deck, or that's the one so when we originally did this, I had one ready for this week, and then I set the one up for next week, but I'm just going to shift them both 1 week or one episode.
Okay, no worries. We'll post it on we will post it on the pod references in the Discord, and you guys can check it out there. And we will, whoever's going to be hosting next week, we're going to bring our opinions and bring an actual deck pairing for it, so you guys can kind of see the process. And if you guys want to play along, you can also choose some decks or a deck to pair with it, which I think is fun. Very cool. And yeah, just if we want to kind of ramp things down here, Eli, I'm kind of putting you on the spot here, but we usually like to finish the show with something we've been doing away from Solace. So anything exciting going on in your life that has nothing to do with Solforge Fusion?
Yeah, actually, I just a couple weeks ago went to my college roommate, just got married, and so I was best man for him. Flew out to Colorado, did a bachelor party where we got an Airbnb at a nice, cool mountain town. The next day, we rented some UTVs and did some mountain trails for like 6 hours. That was really cool.
Cool.
Yeah, I had a great time. I hadn't seen him in many years, and I'm so glad that I have some experience with improv, because getting up and making a speech in front of 80 people didn't really bother me.
Nice.
I got mega bonus points because I didn't read my speech; I just spoke it. Yeah, that was a ton of fun, and it was a great adventure.
Cool. Yeah, that doesn't surprise me at all. You're very well spoken, very well spoken, and yeah,
Very well spoken math nerd.
obviously more well spoken than myself.
You think of math nerds, you think of guys in a closet doing their math and like not being interfacing with the world very well. They're lost in their own head. But Eli breaks the mold.
Multifaceted, talented man here.
To be fair, I don't really consider myself a mathematician anymore. It's like I did that in college, and then I watch some math YouTube videos. Maybe I make some art that's inspired by math. I would put myself in the realm of recreational mathematician now.
And that is exactly somebody that I would not expect to be a good public speaker. If you put recreational and math together, you are a huge nerd.
Or funny for that matter. Right?
Exactly. Breaks the mold.
Cool. What about you, Trey? What have you been up to?
So I missed most of May. I was gone 2 weeks in May. My wife and I take a big trip every 5 years for our anniversary. And our anniversary is 5-year anniversary is on 1 and 6, but that was COVID. So we delayed our anniversary trip by 2 years, and I've been in the UK for 2 weeks. I've been back almost a week now, or about a week now. But I've been in the UK for 2 weeks, and it was fun. I had a great time. There are some differences in the UK that make me very glad to be an American and a Texan in particular. But I enjoyed it. I had a good time there. I love going, experiencing new cultures and learning new things and seeing history, and taking the Ted Lasso tour of the UK was pretty fun. So that's what I've been doing. I went to London and Scotland, and then apparently Calgary, where I met your alter ego.
Yeah, definitely was not in Calgary. We were talking about this actually at that moment, but Americans seem to just fly all over the country all the time. And I guess it's affordable, because in Canada, like if I want to fly to Calgary and back, for example, I'm probably paying like north of $800.
Yeah, I talk to some of my friends that travel a lot and go to Canada a lot, and that's like a known thing that you guys going left and right in Canada is like prohibitively expensive.
You drive. You just drive. You just
You're
drive.
Not drive 2,000 miles to Calgary.
No, to Calgary, no. But like, we just don't travel that far.
Okay.
Like when I went to Star Wars Destiny Worlds. And so
Minnesota?
I drove 5 hours over the border to fly from Sioux, Michigan, because it just made more sense for me to drive 5 hours and get onto a flight in the States to fly over to Minnesota than it would to fly from here. So yeah, it sucks flying in Canada. It's very, very expensive.
Meanwhile, one of your national airlines, WestJet, was like the best. I took a bunch of different airlines flying around. That was the best one I took.
Well, if you're paying that much to fly around, I guess they use that money in their budget. I'm not sure how that works, but yeah, cool. Yeah, I've been working a ton, and the weather has finally turned here. It's been gorgeous. My boys have been playing outside every day for like 2-3 hours after school, and I live on a lake here, so we're just like
pretty.
We're like 100 feet, 200 feet from a beach right in our backyard. So we've been spending some time in the water and that kind of thing. So that's been super fun. And in terms of like entertainment, I guess the last thing that I watched was The Last of Us, and that was unbelievable. Like I only played a tiny bit of the first game. I want to say I maybe got about halfway through. So I knew a little bit about the story, but I didn't remember much. It was when it first came out. So I kind of went in basically with almost no knowledge of the story, other than the fact that it's Joel and Ellie traveling and trying to get across the country. But man, what a great show. And some people have complained a little bit about the like lack of zombies. I think that's the main thing that I kind of got in terms of like, there was only really a couple of episodes that had like big epic scenes that involved zombies, that involved these creatures. Those scenes were incredible and epic. The museum scene in particular, I thought was so well crafted. And then, you know, the big one where they all come out of the ground and you see that bloater. It's just so
spoil it. Not everybody's seen it.
So epic. Well, it's very vague. But yeah, some like incredible storytelling, and episode 3 in particular I thought was fantastic. I really enjoyed the whole series. I think Pedro Pascal was unbelievable, and the girl's name escapes me now. I think it's L something. Anyways, she was also really great. Highly recommend the show. And I was just gonna say, like, the one of the things that I got was that, like, not even every episode has clickers or you know, shamblers or whatever you want to call them. But you know, if you want that, just go watch The Walking Dead, because that's all that is. It's just like empty storytelling with a ton of like cool kills. So if you want that, go watch that show. This is like a really great drama that happens to take place in the post-apocalyptic kind of zombie world. So yeah, huge fan of the show. Definitely recommend.
Since we're talking about Last of Us, I want to just say Ashley Johnson, the voice of Ellie in the games, was brought on as a guest to be her mom. That was the actress who played her mom. She's just the coolest person to ever come from my hometown. So Ashley Johnson, Thank you for repping Camarillo. You're the coolest person to ever come from Camarillo. So thank you.
Yeah, she had a small role, but a very impactful one, and that was a cool little moment for her. Absolutely, really cool. Trey, have you seen it?
I'm actually in the middle of watching it right now with my girls. So
okay,
my wife is in college right now, and so when she goes off to college for her day, and 2 hours away, we'll sit down, we'll eat dinner, and we'll watch an episode or so. So I'm not all the way through it yet, but I'm most of the way through it.
Awesome, cool. Yeah, looking forward to hearing your thoughts. As I was a huge fan, and HBO just continues to put out incredible content, like unbelievable.
Good shows.
Yeah, for sure. All right, well, that'll wrap it up. Thanks everyone for bearing with us. It's been a little bit of a long one, but I think we've had some really interesting, fun discussions here. And thank you, Eli, for joining us. This was great on kind of short notice. So thanks for joining us. Much appreciated.
Oh, I'm sorry. I feel like I always make the episodes long when I come on.
No, not at all. No, we love it. We love it for sure. Okay, thanks again, everyone. We'll see you next time on the Fifth Cycle podcast. Take care. She keeps on rocking with me.